Okay, we're going to make a start. So good morning, my name is Louise Rance and this is a webinar about stress management. To tell you a bit about ourselves, so I am a part of a company called Clover HR. We're a HR consultancy. There's over 20 consultants that work throughout the UK. We are your trusted people advisors. We're here to help in any way that we can. We have a lot of experience between us, over 150 years, so we can give you the best service. We all have our specialisms in the areas of people, which includes recruitment, training, coaching, well-being, rewards, mediation, and many other people strategies. This is a little bit about myself. So my name is Louise Rance. I'm a HR business partner and workplace mediator working for Clover HR. My background, I've worked for some large companies, including Manchester United, Job Centre Plus, various housing associations, including Great Places Housing Group and Calico Probation Service. And I have over 20 years experience working at HR manager and HR business partner level. I have muted your microphones, but if you've got any questions, if you want to pop them in the Q&A box, and I will answer them as I go along, or I'll come to them at the end. Yeah, please do use that. As I said, I've muted your microphones, but we can use the Q&A box for any questions. So this is what we're going to cover today. So we're going to be looking at what is workplace stress and what are the effects. What's the difference between pressure and stress? What are the signs of stress and the causes? Looking then at employees' obligations and risks, actions for employers and organisations to take, stress risk assessments and next steps, and then time for Q&A at the end. So first of all, let's have a look at a definition of what is workplace stress. So UK Health and Safety Executive defines workplace stress as the adverse reaction people have to excessive pressure or other types of demands placed on them in work. And people can become stressed when they feel they don't have the resources that they need to cope with a particular situation, whether that's physical resources, in terms of equipment, time, staff, their own physical resources, financial, have they got enough budget to carry out the objectives that have been set, and the emotional demands that are put on them, and how do they cope with those. So looking at some of the effects of workplace stress. So in terms of businesses, stress does pose a risk to business because of the effect that having stressed people in your workforce presents. So that can result in higher sickness absence levels, and you'd be able to see the trends of that. Lower staff engagement, so people just are not as connected at work. A higher staff turnover, which can result in reduced productivity. And then you run the risk of claims for constructive dismissal and potentially for damages as well. And the issue of wide stress is significant and widespread. So according to the Health and Safety Executive, 17.9 million working days were lost to stress, anxiety and depression in 2019-2020. And stress is, when you look at surveys, the CIPD did a health and wellbeing survey report in 2021, and that showed stress as being one of the main causes of short and long-term absence. And over 4/5 of respondents, that's 79% of the organisations and people that responded to that survey, reported some stress-related absence in their organisation in the last year. And the effects of stress have also been compounded by dealing with the COVID situation as well, which we'll explore. So what's the difference between pressure and stress? So we all need some pressure in our lives, and some level of pressure can actually help us perform. So it can motivate us. So motivation to meet a deadline, motivation to rise to a challenge. But if that pressure becomes excessive, or it's continuous for long periods of time, it then can become harmful to the health and well-being of that person. So what are the signs of stress to look out for in the workplace? So you may see a decline in work performance, people making mistakes that it's uncharacteristic for them to make, spending increased periods of time at work. And this is something to really look out for, in that people are spending longer periods of time. If they're working from home, they're logged in for longer, they're working at weekends, they're sending out of hours emails, they're not planning their holidays. So we need to be encouraging all employees to plan chunks of holiday out throughout the year, so that they're having periods of rest and respite throughout the year, including longer holidays. So encouraging all employees to have at least 2 weeks off consecutively. But this is what you'd see, a lack of holiday planning. I do remember one senior manager saying to me once that he felt going on holiday was just was just a way of putting off work, and that it meant that his productivity would go down. And I was really sad to hear that, because I thought, if we don't have a balance in our lives, how can we cope with the demands of work? And sad to say, that particular manager did go on to have some significant health problems. So we need to have a healthy approach to planning our holidays. Emotional signs. So you may see outbursts of emotion. So you might witness crying, having more arguments with people, overreacting to situations, being generally more irritable, being uncharacteristically moody, and having personality clashes with people in the organisation or even with clients. You may witness that people are showing signs of withdrawal. So they're arriving late to work, they're finishing early, they're having periods of sickness absence. There's reduced social contact, which, yes, we've all experienced in COVID, but not joining in team activities, not wanting to engage with people. People can exhibit physical signs. So their speech may become more rapid or nervous. They're exhibiting high signs of fatigue and tiredness, having tension headaches. People might have rapid weight gain or loss. And then people then turn to coping strategies, which are not always particularly helpful. So that might mean there's an increase in alcohol consumption or smoking, and they're just generally having difficulty relaxing. And then you may see aggressive behaviours. So for instance, people circulating malicious gossip, being overly critical of others. You might even see people bullying other people or treating them disrespectfully, and then having outbursts of anger or temper. So these are all signs to be aware of and look out for. So what are the causes of stress? So again, the CIPD Health and Wellbeing Survey identified the main causes of employee stress as being, and this is in order of causes. So the main cause being workload, volumes of work, a feeling that the workload is too high, a feeling of not being able to cope with the demands placed on them. Management style has a massive effect on people's well-being. So how supportive is the senior management? How supportive is the line manager? Are they regularly checking in with that person to check their well-being? Are they taking action if people are reporting issues with workload? And then new work-related demands due to home working result of COVID. So a lot of people have been home working from COVID, and that means that they're more isolated from their normal support networks. It also means that they may be working longer hours than they would have been had they been in the office. Then non-work related factors such as strains in relationships or family issues that they're dealing with. COVID related anxiety and all that brings with it. anxiety about maybe as things start to open up, going out places, being with more people than we've become used to. Non-work factors, so personal illness or health issues that employee's dealing with. And then again, this poor work-life balance due to home working as a result of COVID. So it's become all too easy, as well as it giving us flexibility, which is a good thing, but it's become all too easy to just log on or do a few more hours at night or early mornings or at the weekend, which is fine so long as that person's maintaining some work-life balance. And then strained relationships at work, which can be a big cause of stress. So what are our obligations as employers? So under the legal framework, employers have a common law duty to protect the safety of their employees. So if they breach that duty, then you can be facing negligence claims for damages. And those are negligence, if somebody brings a negligence claim for damages, there's no upper limit to how much a court may award in that. So if somebody can prove they've suffered physical, psychological damage because of the work environment, particularly if they can say that the employer was aware of that, and if the employer can't point to measures that they've taken to minimise stress, then it is laying yourselves open to negligence claims. So the Health and Safety at Work Act, so there's a common law duty, there's then a legal duty under the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, which places a legal obligation on the employer to provide and maintain a safe work environment. So the onus is on employers to assess the risk of mental or stress-related ill health that arises from work activities and take measures to control that risk, as you would to control any other health or safety risk in the workplace. So, as I've said, employees can claim the employer's being negligent and claim damages in court. In terms of awards, then work-related stress awards vary, looking at case law, with general damages from $5,000 for the lower levels of stress, which have got not a long-term effect, to much larger sums going up to $850,000 or more. That's just one particular case, depending on the long-term effect on the employee's health and capacity to work. So if somebody at work has suffered a stress-related illness that's then turned into a longer-term psychological illness, such as depression or anxiety, and has found that they can prove that they do no longer have capacity to work, that's when higher levels will be awarded. So there's legal reasons as well as looking after the welfare of your employees, that there are legal risks as well. And then there's a risk of employees resigning and claiming constructive dismissal at tribunal because they feel that their position has become untenable and the relationship of trust and respect between themselves and the employer has broken down. So what can we do about it? Well, there are lots of things that can be done about it. And the CIPD Health and Wellbeing Survey identified the most common methods that organisations use to manage stress. So one of the chief things that you can do is have a written stress policy and guidance that your managers are trained in, that your employees are aware of, and that measures are taken within that. To have an occupational health service that you can refer people to get medical guidance on how you can support them. To have an employee assistance programme that might involve, say, a counselling hotline. A lot of the programmes do, where it's a 24-hour confidential counselling helpline that's available to all employees. To have flexible working policies so that your employees can improve their work-life balance. So when people apply for flexible working, you look at it reasonably and look at how you can accommodate it, that you have a policy in place so people know how they can apply for that and what is available. A chief issue is training for line managers to manage stress. So this is training for line managers to spot the signs of stress, to know what to do about it, to be able to have those conversations with employees where they can find out what's happening and put measures in to support them. Training at building personal resilience, so the resilience training that can help people develop coping techniques such as mindfulness, recommending physical exercise, etc. To conduct staff surveys or have focus groups, so you can check the temperature of your organisation, if you like, look at what the levels of stress are, involve the staff so that you can find out what the levels of stress are, and form focus groups that can look at what are the causes and what can be done about it. And then stress management training for the whole workforce. So this would be training developing people so they can identify signs of stress in themselves and recommending measures that they can take. And then doing risk assessments or stress audits. So risk assessments you may do if an employee flags up that they are feeling or exhibiting signs of stress, and the stress risk assessments would look at what is the cause of that and put an action plan in place to tackle that. Stress audits, again, would be a way of checking what's happening in your organisation, how are people feeling. So in terms of stress risk assessments, the health and safety executives have produced guidance on how to conduct a stress risk assessment. There's some really excellent guidance on the HSE website. So there's copies of risk assessment templates with examples of how to put one together. And the HSE has developed a set of management standards to help identify and manage 6 areas of work design, which they've identified can affect stress levels. So those 6 areas are there: demands, control, support, relationships, job role, and change. I'll now go into what those actually mean. So looking at the demands, this looks at the workload that somebody is dealing with and their general working environment. Control determines how much autonomy somebody has, so how much say they have over the job and how it's done. It looks at the level of support, so the level of supervision and resources that are available to do that particular job role. It looks at relationships, so how are relationships working? Is the conflict there and how can that be avoided? Looking at somebody's job role, so making sure that they understand their job role and how it fits into the organisation, so that there's clarity between the job that somebody's doing and what they think their employer wants, and there's clarity that their line manager is making sure that matches with what the organisation wants. And then looking at change, how organisational change is communicated, how are people involved in that? So what are your next steps? If you're conducting a stress risk assessment, I really urge you to look at that guidance on the HSE website. They have a series of toolkits, as I said, examples of stress risk assessments. We can also, you can contact us here at Clover HR and we can support you to undertake a stress audit. We can supply training for managers so they can spot the signs of stress and be able to support employees. We can help you introduce a stress policy and help you complete stress risk assessments. So if you want assistance from us, then please contact us. You can contact us via our website. I'll put my contact details up at the end as well. And if you'd like a free copy of a stress risk assessment, then please send me an email and I'll send you that out. There is additional guidance available as well that you can look at. So there's the ACAS site dealing with stress at work. There's the health and safety executives that I've already mentioned that have got lots of resources on work-related stress. And there's the CIPD. If you go on the CIPD website, there are fact sheets to look at as well, and reports that cover stress in the workplace. Plus you can look in detail at the report that I've referred to. So in summary then, we've explored what is workplace stress and what's the potential effects. We've looked at the difference between pressure and stress, and we've looked at signs of stress, what to look out for. And we've covered what are your obligations and risks as an employer. What actions do you need to take? The factors that are involved in risk assessments, next steps, and additional guidance that is available. So thank you. That comes to the end of the webinar. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask? And if you do, please put them in the Q&A box. I'm just having a look at the chat. So yeah, hi Elizabeth. Yes, thank you. Okay. So I've not got any questions coming up, so I hope you've all found that very useful. My details are on there, Louise Rance, so you can email me or give me a ring, or you can go to our Clover website. So thank you for attending. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you'll join us on some of our further webinars in the future. Okay, yes, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. Thank you. Okay, I shall end the webinar now. I'm glad you've all found it useful.